Okay, so we're going to use the same file that we did yesterday, maybe more of a recap. We can talk about the different types of questions that so far we have managed to handle. So we talked a lot about the single select question, and we said these are the question that the respondent has only one option to choose. And today I want to switch gears so that we also see how we can handle the questions that you're giving your respondent a chance to choose more than one option. So we'll still then you see so far what have you been able to digest. So how do you open? So if you just go to your desktop, I believe all of us we were saving the file somewhere in our desktop. So if you go and double click on it, you should be good to go. I believe by now you should be seeing my screen. So let's talk about section B. And in section B, the question goes, so the entire section is all about awareness. And basically you're just trying to ascertain on how the customers, remember this one is a customer satisfaction survey. So NSSF as an organization would want to know how the customers were able to know about them. And I think in most organizations, even I think when you're enrolling for these classes, I'm sure during the registration process, there was a time you were asked, how did you get to know about it? So that kind of details inform the organization on areas that now they can invest in as far as reaching out to more of their customers, and also they will be able to tell on the gap. So, for instance, if you find most people are talking about maybe, for instance, radio, that means radio is one of the active platforms that people are getting to know information about the organization. So, what does that inform on policy? Should the organization now invest more where people are using that platform, or they could find other platforms whereby maybe the organization doesn't really utilize, but maybe most of their customers are there. Let me put it as an example. Right now, you understand if you're not running an advertisement in social media, then there should be something wrong with the organization. Why? Because if you are to choose between putting an advertisement in a newspaper and running maybe a Facebook advertisement, chances are if you are targeting most of the young folks right now, you'll be able to get them on social media. Unless I don't even if the last time I don't remember the last time I bought a newspaper. Forgive my routine, but I believe what I'm trying to communicate is the trend is shifting. So also organizations should also be moving with the emerging issue. So anyway, let's talk about awareness. So the question goes, which were your sources of awareness about National Social Security Fund? And there's some sort of instruction whereby the assistant is informed that they're not supposed to read out. So you're not preempting on where the direction of the research should go. And actually, during the data collection process or when you're conducting a research, you have to be impartial at all times, and you make sure that let the research take its course. So your job is just to proceed and maybe talk about the findings. What have you figured out after now collecting that data? And then also maybe you can just recommend. But research, we always say you should not direct your research to a certain. I think that's what we talk about bias. So here, the idea is you just let the target audience to explain or to mention all the platforms that they were able to obtain information concerning the said organization. So these questions, how will you handle it? Because now a respondent might come and select radio, and the same respondent might also come and select newspaper. So let's start with this part, the last part. I explained the other specify, and then we will also see how to handle this closed-ended. So I gave a brief information about these types of questions, and I think I refer to them as qualitative. But let me see, what comes in your mind in this option other? What should happen? Let me put that as a question and anyone can respond. What do you understand by this part of other specify in your own words? Can I start with Ayan? Ayan, you're there. Ladies first, and then Dalmas, you can go. Tell me what you understand with this part of other specify.
Oh, I think that part we are only talking about if the person maybe knows the organization from any other platform like you haven't mentioned in the choices that you've given. So you give them a chance to give that information and you go ahead and tell them to specify.
Okay. Dalmas, you want to add something on that? Okay. Uh, I think that Dalmas was, I don't know if he's adjusting the devices, but I think it's straightforward. What you are trying to say here is there's these closed-ended options, and these are now the platforms that maybe the organization understands that they are active, but they're giving the audience a chance to also inform them, and this is what we refer as insights. So in an event that there's a platform which is not among the one listed here, Dalmas, I don't know if you want to say something concerning this question before I proceed. What do you understand by other? Specify. So you left when you had a chance to.
Maybe,
Okay.
yes, so other specify may be for responses or for variables or questions that the maybe the researcher has given the respondent the opportunity or the leeway to give more information about what was not contained in the other sections of the questions that were being posed to the respondent.
Perfect. So I think we're all getting the idea. So I was trying to build on top of what so far we have mentioned. So we're just saying in an event that there is other platforms which is not among the one listed here, then you're giving your respondent a chance to also inform this organization. And assuming maybe somebody else maybe saw something about NSSF on Facebook, then that respondent will come and write here Facebook. Maybe somebody else saw something on LinkedIn, then they will come and write here LinkedIn. Maybe they saw something on Instagram, they will come and write here Instagram. And I think that is what I was trying to explain earlier on, that uh, as an organization, you move with the trends that are happening. So if right now you are putting a lot of advertisement on newspaper and people are spending almost half of their day on social media, then you realize now maybe you're missing out on where you're supposed to get more customers. Okay, so if somebody provided those three results that I've just mentioned, now how will you handle this part of other specified? One, I just said, if you're giving your respondent a chance to write whatever their thought is, then that type of data that you're collecting is what referred as qualitative. Now, how will you make sense out of qualitative data? Because, like I said, one person has mentioned Facebook, another person maybe Instagram, another person LinkedIn. So, what will happen, and it's a very tedious job, as a researcher, you'll have no choice but to read all those texts that your respondents are writing to you, and then you will have to come up with what you call themes. Simple way to explain that is, for the three example, Facebook, Instagram, and maybe LinkedIn, what one word can we use to represent those three groupings as a theme? What can you tell, or what are those three things I've just mentioned? Anyone?
I think that will be social media to just get it generally.
Correct. So you'll create a theme called social media, and then instead of going and report that one person responded by saying Facebook, another person responded by saying LinkedIn, another person responded by saying uh, even Twitter or X, then you will report that apart from these categories, radio, TV, and newspaper, there are three respondents who are mentioning social media. Now, that is the insight. If you're to sit down now with the management of this organization, then they'll be like, oh, So we also have some of our customers who are using a platform that maybe we are not prioritizing. Now, if they were to maybe make adjustment on their marketing strategy, of course, this one is a customer satisfaction survey, so there's the implementation part of it. And if now this one will now be one of way of informing the organization. That's why they had to leave it as blank. So I hope I've communicated something. So, but how to handle qualitative data? I said that is not this class. So there's a specific class which maybe you will learn on how to handle such type of question. So that comes to this closed-ended. How will you code radio, TV, and newspaper? Friends, publicity boards, employer, visiting premises. How will you code that into SPSS? So one, you will have to treat each of the response as variable. You will treat radio as a variable, TV as a variable, newspaper as a variable. And then if somebody checked on radio, so that is basically them saying yes to radio as a platform. So in short, you'll have this thing as more of a yes and no type of question. And then later is when now we'll introduce the aspect of creating a set and a subset, because you know very well there's no variable called radio. There's also no variable called TV. So you have to go and inform the software again that yes, even though I created variable radio, TV, and newspaper, these are all part of what we refer as awareness. So you'll create something called awareness. Let's do that practical so that we can see. I think we'll relate more when we do it. So we'll go to our variable view, because we say that is the interface where you code your variable. And now we're treating each of those response as a variable. So the first response for sources of awareness, we have radio. So I'll say radio. And then we'll have radio as numeric. And then, of course, I'll adjust decimal point to 0. I will label it as radio. I think that is straightforward. I will still understand what that means. And then under values is when I'll say let the value of 1 denote someone who said yes to that platform radio. And then I will add. And then I also say let the value of 2 denote somebody who did not select that platform radio. Then I also add. And then on okay, and under measure, this one will now be nominal. So it's just like gender binary codes. So let me just pick the first 3. And then of course the drill is just the same with the rest. So let's just use radio, TV, and newspaper for the sake of learning. I'll have TV, numeric. I'll adjust decimal to 0. For TV, we can have it as television. And then the same drill, yes and no. So if you don't want to always be keying in manually, you can always copy paste. But always make sure that whatever you're copying and pasting is relatable. So if now you're repeating yes and no as the response. So I can just copy and then come and paste for the second variable. On measure, I will adjust to nominal. And let's have newspaper. Newspaper, I'll have it as numeric. I'll adjust decimal to 0. The newspaper is just newspaper. Then as usual, I want to copy and paste. Now that you've created this radio, TV, and newspaper, so I just said, let's use these 3. Would have added friend, publicity board, employer, visiting their premises. Oh, let me just mention a thing before we proceed. So I mentioned that under other specify, you create themes. But now those themes that you have created, you don't bring them to SPSS. So that's social media. You don't bring it to SPSS. So during your report, your final work, because now you need to write a report. So during your reporting is when I will say, apart from radio, TV, and newspaper, there are now these 3 respondents who are mentioning social media. So the theme or the thematic analysis is not part of quantitative. You will not code that in SPSS. I hope that is clear now. So let's key in some observation for these three groupings so that we see how that will look like. So assuming the first respondent mentioned radio, they agreed that radio was one of their sources of awareness. So I'll have 1 for radio. Assuming they said no to TV, so I'll have there 2. And if they said also yes to newspaper, then I'll have it as 1. So let me create deliberately the second respondent to be a special case, and then we learn a thing about this respondent. So if I give this person 2, that means they said no to radio. 2 also, that means they also said no to TV. And 2 for newspaper. He's a special guy, and like I said, we'll learn a thing or two about this person who's not saying yes to any of the platform. So let me just randomly fill in for the rest, and you can do the same also on your side. So this is what we say data entry. You are just transferring information from the piece of paper to now your data view. Again, there's nothing much here. So the skill that you will have here is all about speed. How fast can you key in some observation? So this is how my database looks like. So what next? Remember we said right now we are treating radio, TV, and newspaper as variable. Yet you know very well there was no variable as radio, there's no variable as TV, there was also no variable as newspaper. So this is the step whereby now we'll have to create a set. So we'll create a set called awareness, and then I will say awareness comprises of radio, TV, and newspaper. And then I will see if we can be able to make sense out of our distribution. So before we create set and subset, maybe let's try and see on how can we make sense out of single select questions, and then we also come and make sure we can make sense out of the multiple select question, which is radio, TV, and newspaper. So for the single select option, it's very simple. If you want to know how many mails were in this database, then just go to analyze descriptive statistics and then frequencies. And then you can select the variables that you want. So if you want to have a better view, you can always right click and display the variable name. So it will be much easier for you to identify the variable that you want to work with. So I want to start with age, for instance. Let me take gender. I can also take occupation and then relationship. So let me just pick that one. So these are now the single select types of questions. So I said analyzing them is much more straightforward. If I click OK, then you realize I'm getting a frequency table, which is basically indicating to me how many times a certain grouping appear. So in this case, if I start with the age in years as my first variable, I can tell that majority of my respondents were between the age of 35 to 34, which they comprise around 50% of the entire population, followed by now those who are between 35 and 44, who are now 30% of the population. And then the last one is the younger population, which is 18 to 24. So this is now what you will go and report. So this is more like a preliminary analysis. But now let's talk about the multiple select. How will you make sense of this multiple select question now that we know how to handle the single select question? Of course, we are still under data entry, so you will learn more about analysis when we arrive there. So for this multiple select part, we said we're going to create a set, and then inside that set, we will have a subset called radio, TV, and newspaper. Do that, just go to analyze, and then there's an option of multiple response, because those are the type of questions we are dealing with. And if I define my variable set, then I can be able to select what are these variables that I've actually created as variable, yet I know they are not variable. So as usual, you can right click so that you display variable name. And I don't know if we are back on.
We are not getting. I'm not getting you.
What is the last word? So that I know when I disappeared.
You disappeared from the time you started doing the analysis. Not from the analyze. That's where I lost you.
Okay. So let's just do it again. So I said there are two types of questions that you're handling at the moment. So we have, I hope, presenting my screen. So we have these questions which we refer to them as single select. And to handle single select type of question, it's simple or it's a bit straightforward. So these are examples of those variables are like gender, age, occupation, relationship. These are the ones that the respondent was only choosing one. So how do you make sense out of that? You can go just to analyze descriptive statistics and then frequency. Then I'll select the variables and then you transfer them from this side to the other side. So the first one is age, you transfer, do the same for gender, occupation, and relationship. So how do you transfer? You just point at any of the variable, use this arrow at the center, and of course the variable will be transferred to the other side. And if you click OK, then you are now having some frequency table. So this frequency table is now a description of how your distribution looks like. So remember we said again, and analysis will break down into two. We'll talk a lot about descriptive statistics and also inferential analysis. So this is now part of descriptive analysis. But for now, we're just learning data entry. So we'll have time to talk a lot about how to analyze data. Now let's talk about this part of multiple response. So how do you make sense out of this response? One, you know very well there was no variable as radio, there was no variable as TV, there was also no any variable as newspaper. And this is when I said you need to come up with a set, and then now you define what are these subsets that comprises awareness. So the procedure will be, you just go to analyze, and then there's an option for multiple response, analyze, and then multiple response, and then you define the variable sets. The meaning of define is you're just informing the software about some of the entities that you have just created. So I'll define the variable set, and now I can select the variables that are sources of awareness. So let me right click anywhere among the list of the variables, and I can select display variable names. Easier for me to identify the variables like that. So what are these variables? I'll transfer radio, I will transfer TV, radio TV, and also newspaper. How have I coded my variables? So if you look here, there's an option of variable are coded as. So if you recall, when we were coding this variable radio, TV, and newspaper, we introduced the values of 1 to denote that somebody was saying yes to a platform, and the value of 2 was meant for that person who said no to that platform. So logically, it means the organization is keen on knowing individuals who are saying yes to a platform. I think that's the usefulness of this question. Which platform did you get to obtain information about NSF? So I will instruct the software that how about you provide for me information or concentrate only to individuals who are saying yes. That's what I'm saying. And the variable are coded as the counted value should be 1. So those who are saying yes to a platform are now the person of interest. I'll give this question now a name, so I'll call it awareness. And then I'll label it as sources of awareness on NSF. Of course, label is just to provide more information. So if somebody comes and see awareness, they'll be able to relate what question was. But if they were to see radio and TV and newspaper, it might have been hard for them to know, was there a question like radio? So this is now us saying that this radio, TV, and newspaper is part of a set called awareness. So once I'm done with that, I'll click here on add. That means I've just created a set, and then I'll close this interface. So what do I want to know about awareness? I want to know how the distribution looked like. So to get distribution, I will go back to analyze. Analyze and then multiple response. And this time I'm not defining the variable set. Instead, I want to extract frequency. I select on frequency. I can transfer now the awareness to the other side, and I'll click OK. And there you go. I'm getting my results. But now let's try and make sense, because we're not just here to come up with the results output and then that's it. Everything you're producing, you have to communicate, or you should understand what you've just created. So let's start with case summary table. And if you look here, it says what we have: a valid n at 7, missing at 3, and total population is 10. Okay. So maybe let me put it as a question. What does this n, capital N, or what does capital N denotes in statistics? What does it mean when you see capital N? And maybe when you also see small letter n, what are those notation represent? Let me put it as a question. Capital N and small n, what does it represent in statistics? Anyone? Okay, so n denotes the population, and then the small letter n always indicates the sample. Okay, so in this case, because the population is small, so we're not going to extract any sample. So we all know the role of having a sample is because you don't want to do census. You don't want to collect data from the entire population, because as a way of reducing maybe cost and also saving on time, whereby now you can pick a part of the entire population just to be a representation of the entire thing. And I think that's why we tend to do a survey instead of a census. So census, you involve all the participants, but survey is when now you're using a sample. So if you see a small letter n, then know that is a sample. And when you see capital letter N, then it means that is a population. So in this case, we know very well the entire population here, we are having 10 respondents. But your results is telling you that we have 7 of them were valid, but 3 are missing, and the total is 10. And if I check my data view, I'm not seeing anyone missing. Now, that's the question. Let me put it now back to you. Who are these 3 people who are said to be missing? Yet we can see that all the 10 respondents were actually providing their data. Who are these people who are missing? Anyone who wants to try that? Who are these people who are missing? Yet I'm not seeing anyone to be providing any detail. I'm seeing all of them have given me some answers. Why are having 3 as missing? You can attempt in your own language, in your own understanding. Then I will guide you. Okay, so for the sake of time, maybe we can proceed. So remember, I told you there are some individuals who are not saying yes to any platform. For instance, there's this respondent number 2 who was saying no to all the platforms. I think there's also this respondent number 4 who's saying no to all the platforms. There's also my respondent number 6 who's saying no to all. Yes, Dalmas.
I was just getting curious a bit, just to remind you to please record today's session so that we'll get to follow it up. Because even with the interruptions that have been here and there, we'll want to have the recorded uh, class so that we can even make follow up later on. Thank you.
Perfect. So I think we're good. So we're trying to make sense out of those three missing, so that you don't go to a meeting with a data like this. Because if you go there and then you're trying to present this work, say, hey, this is my results. Somebody sitting there will ask you, why is your results having a missing person? Yet when you're out there to the field, you didn't come back with some answer that was missing. Is there an error or there's some issue with this data? So that's the reason why we need to fix on this part of three who are missing, yet you know very well there was no person who was not giving details, like everyone was responding. And the solution for that is these three individuals are those individuals who are saying no to all the platforms. So because we instructed the software that it should focus with those individuals who are saying yes, then it treats any person who was giving 222 as a missing. This is what I'm explaining. Remember when we were defining variable sets, there was that part whereby we were asked counted values, and here we said 1. So that means the software was only focusing on individuals who are saying yes to a platform. So anyone who was saying no, they are now being treated as missing, and we need to fix that. So the only solution is to come up again with another subset. So apart from radio, TV, and newspaper, how about we create something we call none of the above? Whereby now all those individuals who are not selecting radio, they are not selecting TV, they are also not selecting newspaper, they'll all be accommodated under this category called none of the above. So I'll have it none, and then numeric, I'll adjust decimal to 0. I'll label it as none of the above, and then of course it will be yes and no, so you know who exactly belongs to this category none of the above. So if I go to data view, so the only person who will have 1 in this thing called none is the person who was saying no to all the platforms. So for instance, the first respondent, at least they have mentioned radio, so they don't belong in this category called none. So I'll have it as 2. But now this second person was saying no to all the platform, so I'll give them 1. This one I'll give them 2. Again, this one is saying no, 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 so I'll give them 1 and none of the above. The next one I'll have 2. Respondent number 6 is also saying no to all the platform, so I'll give them 1 there. This one is saying yes to all the platform, I'll give them 2, 2, 2, and lastly 2. So now that we have created a new subset, then we need to add it to the rest of the subset awareness. So we will go back and define our variable set. So we say under awareness, we not only have radio, TV, and newspaper, but we also have a category called none of the above. So I'll go back to analyze multiple response and then define the variable sets. I will click on awareness so that everything is active. I don't have to repeat everything. And once you click on awareness, then you will have to transfer the none of the above to join the rest as now part of the subset. So I will transfer none of the above to this other side and then click on change. Click on change. I will then close, and now let's extract frequency, and then you see if you're going to still have missing cases or we have solved that issue. So if I go back to analyze and then multiple response, we can now extract frequency, analyze multiple response, and then frequency. Since awareness is still in there, I'll just proceed and click OK. And now you can see that the valid N is now 10, and also the total N is now 10. So this is now a correct result that now I can proceed and report. So now let's talk about the reporting. How does the frequency looks like? And I have another question for you guys. So in our data set, we said we can see that we have 10 respondents. But now if I check on my results output, the software is telling me that the total N is 18. Make sure we are in the same page. So if you look here, responses N, we say this is the population, and the total is 18. So again, why am I having 18 respondents? Yes, I know very well that the total sample population was only 10 participants. Who are these 8 people? Or what? Why am I having a figure that is higher than that, than the total sample population? Anyone who can try? Why are we having 18 instead of 10? Proceed.
Maybe I'll just try, though I'm not sure. Hello?
No pressure. Just try
Could it
your
be,
own way and how you are.
yes, could it be from the ones we just created, the ones that we are saying none of the above? Could it be coming from that because they were not initially there, or maybe?
They're now here. The none of the above have been accounted for. None of the above, they have said there are 3. But if you take their total is 18, that's why I'm curious. Like, who are these 8 participants that we don't know? Because the data set has 10. But now the result says the total is 18. And again, you have to make sense out of everything you created. You are the analyst. Ayan, you want to try?
Yes, I think these are the people maybe who are ticking that box for others, maybe.
The other class specify?
Okay, maybe, okay, I think, but in this class you've just used the radio, TV, and newspaper. I thought now you had the other option for others, maybe, but it's not. I don't think that's the correct answer.
Okay, I'll guide. So remember we said the other specify, we are not even touching them because them the special case. The issue was sorted out by reading the entire text, putting them in their themes, and the next time they will be seen is now during reporting. Okay, but now for these 18, remember we said what? This one is a multiple response question. That means a respondent can choose more than one platform. That means there's one respondent who maybe selected radio. So when they are counting individuals who are selecting radio, he was counted. The same person might have also selected television. So when they are counting individuals who had selected television, the same person will also again be counted. Okay, and then also newspaper. That's why we actually refer to this question as multiple select. So the reason why we are having a number that is higher than the actual population is because this 18 is the total number of times that all these platforms were selected. So these one are not respondents, but number of times that a certain platform was selected. That's why somebody might have been counted more than once. And of course, the figure now goes to 18, higher than the actual sample population. So when now you'll be writing your report, the choice of word now matters. Now you'll say, among the platforms that were selected, radio was selected at least 6 times. Television was selected 4 times. Newspaper was selected 5 times. And then those who are not selecting any platform or none of the above were actually 3 times. Now, that percentage can also be accounted for under this other side. That's why you're seeing the total percentage goes up to 180. So you'll say the highest number of times of the platform with the highest percentage of users was radio, which was mentioned up to 60 times. But now if I want to know the number of respondents, now I can say 33.3% of my respondents were choosing radio. That's why you'll see the percentage goes up to 100. So which platform is used by majority of the individuals? It's it's radio with 33% of the respondents. These respondents represent 60% of the number of times all the platforms was selected. So also again, I'm not just here to teach you on how to extract results. The main area is, can you communicate with the output results that you're getting? Now that is you becoming a complete analyst. Okay. So this is what I wanted us to cover. So at least by now you know how to handle, one, the single select questions, and now two, this is multiple select question. Okay, so that marks the first segment of data entry, whereby you say, how will you handle the data from primary sources? So we said the first or the most commonly used tool is a questionnaire, and in a questionnaire, a question can either be a single select question or a multiple select question. So this is the first interface or the first part of our class. Then we also say in data entry, there's a time you'll be working with secondary data. And for secondary data, we say these are now data that is actually maybe stored somewhere. And now you have to use SPSS to perform analysis. So I have an Excel file for actually this NSSF contribute this tool. So I believe all of us, we have the data set, the actual data for the survey. I think now we have the privileges of even interacting with the data set. So if you go to data file, there's also NSSF contributor quiz, which is an Excel file. And if you open it, now this is the end product of how this data was collected. So remember, I told you we used an electronic platform, but if you check here now, this is now serial number. So the donor or the employer wanted also to capture the serial number for each of the questionnaire. And I said, sometimes you might find a client who wants everything, even if you are not going to analyze serial number. So if you check here, the first item was serial number, and now each serial number is also captured. So we know who was this respondent all the way down. So if you are to now work with this Excel file, which is now, of course, maybe downloaded from an ODK platform, how would you go about to analyze it? Because now that's the essence of now working with secondary data. So I'm going to show you on how to import Excel file. Okay, because most of the secondary data, you'll always be having them as Excel. And Excel file comes with around 4 different formats that you'll find yourself working with. So one, you can either be dealing with an XLS file, XLSX. We also have CSV. So most commonly used file type is CSV file. So let's try and import this. So to import an Excel file, first you have to make sure you close it. It should not be open anywhere. And then you go to your SPSS, then File, Open, and then Data, File, Open, Data. You need to know the location of the file that you're about to import into SPSS. So for me, it should be somewhere in my desktop. I think same applies to you. It should be in that folder called download training material. You need to know the location of the file that you're about to import. So if you go to folder SPSS, data file. So I need to see the file format that I want. So I'm dealing with file format SPSS, Excel. So under file type, because right now you can see I cannot even see other different file types that are there, because the file type that is present at the moment is only .sav. So how do you know that a file is an SPSS file? It has an extension of .sav. How do you know a file is an Excel? I said it can have an extension of .xlsx, .xlss, and then CSV. So if I click on this drop down, I can be able to select the different file format. That means somebody can even be sending to you as data file and then say, analyze this data using SPSS, but the data is sent to you as a data file. So you'll just come here and select that maybe you want to import a data file. And as you can see here, data files have an extension of .dta, but the more we interact together, you will be able to understand all these things. So for me, I'll select all files. That means let the software show all the files that are in that folder, regardless of their extension. So the one that I'm interested in is this one, NSSF contributor final XLSX. And once I click on it, now I can click on open. Click on open, give it time. And then now you need to select, you want to analyze data contained in which worksheet. So if you click again on this drop down, so of course there's only one worksheet with data. But if you had now several worksheets with data set, now you will get to choose which worksheet do you want to see. So if I click OK, then you realize I've managed to import the Excel file into now Stata. But now I'm seeing just numbers, as you can see in numbers, and I don't know what these numbers represent. So this is actually part of now data management, whereby you'll say, can I come and now label all these response? Because now I'm just seeing numbers. And how do I want us to see if we can be able to analyze this part of mission and core values, so that I show you how to handle this part of mission and core values as you also label that Excel file that I've just imported. So for instance, if you see now this part of mission and core values, you can see this is question 3A1, and it has attributes from 3A1 all the way to 3I. These are around 9 attributes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Yes. So you have 9 attributes that is supposed to measure mission and core value. Let me put this into context. Something like mission and core value is not a straightforward type of variable. It's not like salary. If I ask you today, what is your salary? You can either tell me I earn this amount, or you can even tell me I earn between this amount to this amount. You can put it as grouping. But if you want to understand how an organization is performing in as far as mission and core value is concerned, you will have no choice but maybe to come up with 9 attributes, which will tell you how that organization is performing. So in this case, I think let me not put a lot of information to you guys. I think for now, let's just digest this one on multiple response parts. Okay, let us just digest this part of multiple response, and also at least understand how to import an Excel file, the one I've just demonstrated with this file. I think up to that point, tutakuwa tumefika mahali. We are now heading somewhere, and then maybe in our next class is when now maybe I'll demonstrate to you on how to analyze this part of mission and core values. Okay, so that you see if you are to handle this type of question, how do you make sense out of it? But for now, make sure you already grasp this part of how to handle multiple response questions. How do you come up with a set, and also having those subsets? I don't wish to stay here for long, so let me take question if there's any. Otherwise, I think let me give you a chance to digest what you have covered so far, and also review. Now there's this tool, because I said in this class I would try as much as possible to at least review 2 questionnaires together, and then now at your own free time interact with this WASH project. I think it's a good questionnaire. So there was a WASH survey that I was doing in Kilifi County, and like I said, I deliberately selected these questionnaires because one, these are some of the things that I've tried, and it's also a good questionnaire that you can be able to learn. So also review these questions and then try and see if you are given this kind of survey, are you in a position to even understand what was happening? And if there's any question that maybe you will find it's a bit technical, then that is what we now discuss in class. Now, that's the reason why it's called live class. Because again, what's the point of coming to this class and maybe you're just watching? I would have just rather record and then you watch at your own free time. But now that we are having a live session, then I want you to disturb me, challenge the thought process that I have, bring in new ideas. And in this class, we said again, there's no right and wrong answers. It's just how you see things. Then that is how you build now knowledge as a researcher. Okay. So what am I saying in summary? I want you to look at this questionnaire called multiple response. I will have a chance to do this questionnaire next time with you here in class. And then the rest, because I'm not, now that I will review 2 questionnaires with you, at least make sure the rest you also review them. And then you figure out if there's any technical questions or things that you don't understand, then we can wrap up the part of data entry on Monday. So that, again, from data entry, we said what? Now we'll see how does it work when you're saying you're doing data management. And then we go to finally analysis. Let me take question or concern if there's any. Otherwise, I will stop there. And then make sure you have also watched all the sessions and introduction to SPSS. And every session that you watch, make sure you mark as complete so that it's captured in your student portal so that we know your progress. You have already maybe watched the course content part, you mark as complete all the way down. Any question or concern?
Yes,
No.
I have a question. Sorry.
Ayan, you
Okay.
can go and then
Do you, on the Excel part, you said you're gonna handle that on Monday, or you've
Yes.
already transferred the. Oh, okay.
So on Monday, we will focus more on how to analyze this part of mission and core values. But if you are given an Excel file today and you're told import that Excel file into SPSS, I believe you should be okay with that, because the procedure I've just demonstrated that you will go to file, then I said open. What are you opening? You're opening data. What type of data are you opening? You need to select the file type, which I said all files. Then you should know the location of that file. So the file that we have just that we'll work on is now, this one is called NSSF contributor quiz. You should be having it in your desktop. So you will select it and then open. So what I'm saying, from Monday, I will pick it up now from here. And now we label it and then we now analyze this question 3A. Now, how will you analyze a question like this one, which is mission and core value? I gave it a name. We say these are what we refer as Likert scale question. It's more like also those questions whereby somebody can either strongly agree to strongly disagree. Dalmas?
Mine is not a question as such, but just to say that at least we are proceeding well, and I think the content is flowing now. We are okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Good. So let's keep it up, and then we do the same with the SPSS. We finish SPSS, we advance to Stata, and then lastly tutamaliza na advanced Excel. Have a good night and see you all in our next class.
Thank you.